will be and it's going to be made available to the public, and we will share the link with you in the follow-up email after today. Previous webinars of ours are also available over on our website if you want to take a look at that. And there's also a French translation option here on Zoom that you can enable if you like. So if you're comfortable, you can leave your camera on and interact during the webinar, or just sit back and watch, though we ask that you please stay muted during the discussion portion. If you have any questions for Stephanie during the discussion, please put them into the Q&A chat on Zoom. You can find it just in the options, not the regular chat, but the Q&A chat. And we'll monitor them as we go during the discussion and maybe try to incorporate some of your questions into the discussion if we have time. Otherwise, we'll touch on them during the Q&A afterwards. Okay, so welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for the webinar Marketing That Fuels Growth, Insights for Product-Based Brands. My name is Holly Keech, and I'm the owner of Busy Boss Communications and the WeBC Regional Ambassador for Prince George and Northern BC. I'm joining you here today from the traditional unceded territory of the Lheidli here in beautiful Prince George. And I invite you, if you want, to write down in the chat on which traditional territory that you are all joining us from today. We'd also love to hear from you if there's a topic that you'd like us to consider for a future webinar. So please tell us in the feedback poll or in the chat at the end of the session. So first, a little background on WeBC. We provide support for your small business journey. We offer financing to get businesses started and operating capital to fuel growth. We offer more flexibility than traditional lenders because we take a holistic approach and provide loans based on your business viability, not based on formulas. This means that we provide loans to a diverse range of women-owned businesses and support you with integrated services, including complementary training, mentoring, and business advising. From essential business skills development to personalized business advice, we know the right questions to ask and the right resources to connect you with. In our mentoring programs, you can connect with a network of women entrepreneurs and experts around BC who can support and inspire you. You can learn more about our services over at our website and sign up for our e-blasts to get notified of new programs, as we have a ton of great offerings coming up. So today's webinar, you've created a great product. Now what? Maybe you've tried social media, hired a freelancer, or launched a campaign that didn't quite land. Or maybe you're starting to see traction and wondering how to build on that momentum. Whatever your stage you're at, one thing is clear. Marketing plays a key role in product-based growth, but it's not always easy to know where to focus. So today, join us for this candid fireside chat with Stephanie Baresh, a seasoned marketing expert who helped grow Eminence Organic Skin Care from a startup into a global brand sold in over 50 countries. Stephanie's going to share insights on what it really takes to market a product successfully, beyond just flashy ads and social posts. Okay, let me just unshare my screen. Welcome, Stephanie.
Good morning, Holly. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being here.
Great.
Do you have
Thank you
anything
for
to
having me.
add to that intro about yourself?
Well, I mean, firstly, I'd just like to say hi to everyone in the WeBC community. It's really great to be here and my first fireside chat. It feels like we really could use a fire today because it's quite cold where I am here in Vancouver and I'm sure all over BC. Thank you for that great introduction. I think when I look back over my career, I mean, working with Eminence for over 20 years was amazing. And, you know, from the early stages up till where I left off. But a little known fact about me is that I had another startup business before that for 12 years, starting a private language school in downtown Vancouver.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, so that was something that also led into the experience and skills that I was able to leverage in my next career, traveling globally and starting off with zero budget and really growing from just little beginnings up to where we end up. And I think all of these different careers and steps that we have really do lead into other things that happen in our careers and lives. And it's not to be taken lightly. We learn something from every single career. And I have two kids that are in university right now, and they're always asking me, what should I do? What should my career be? And I should be the perfect person to mentor them, but really it's the journey, and there are no
Yeah.
right or wrong answers. It really just unfolds itself. So that's something that I'd like to share, that my career started off very differently to where it is now, and that's okay. So thank
Yeah.
you for the
I
introduction.
love
I just
that.
thought I would add that in.
I love that. It's so easy to connect the dots sometimes, when you're looking back,
Mhm.
hindsight, and you can kind of see your career trajectory and how it led you to where you are today. So thank you for that.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
Um, so to start off with today, I was wondering if you could tell us what advice you would give to someone with maybe who has a small budget, but who still wants to make a big impact with their
Mhm.
marketing.
Yes. Well, that's exactly what I was really dealing with in the early stages of starting the skincare brand. So, really, it all started with just three of us working out of my loft apartment on Fourth Avenue at Main Street. And we had zero budget, zero, absolutely zero. Products were coming in, and we were packaging them in my loft, actually. So, when you think about how to save money, well, that was one thing. We didn't have an official office. There was a telephone, and back then we really didn't have the internet. So if you can believe that, it was in a way very different, because it was a lot about that face-to-face interaction, and how can you really leverage that when you don't have a budget at all? So for me, it was finding events that I could attend and just
Mhm.
show the products. And I know that that's something that a lot of business owners seek out, farmers markets or various events, even if they're not directly related to your industry, there may be some crossover. And that's where I found just going and knocking on doors. Movie sets was one place that I started with. Um, I got an offer to come down to the Oscars one year, and I was like, thought that that would be really interesting. They were doing these suites that doesn't seem really directly related to the Oscars, but celebrities would come in and they would get their hair and makeup done, and they would buy different products, energy bars, or all of these different things. And I thought, well, maybe that would be a good place to start. And so it was a very small budget. I flew myself down to LA and set up a little room, and we started doing facials and showing the product. And I quickly learned that that word of mouth was essential. So I didn't expect really what happened in the end. So we had people trying the products, smelling them, touching them, and I think that that's something that you can't really replicate when you do a lot of the
Yeah.
online stuff that's being done right now. So that in-person opportunity really did help propel us forward. And although I was there to meet celebrities and such, what I didn't expect is that makeup artists came in that fell in love with the product, PR people were covering me for free. They were just coming up and interviewing me. So if you can get yourself in front of the right audience, even with a tiny budget, like an airline ticket to California, it can really take you places. And that still continues today. And now we're on some of the biggest movie sets that are produced out of Hollywood. So it just started, really, really simply like that.
Mhm.
Another place that I really focused was free editorial. So if you can get yourself into any of the local magazines or newspapers or online venues, that also is very effective. So I remember we had an article in the North Shore News, which is a small newspaper in North Vancouver here. It was a free article. We just talked about the skincare and aesthetics, and how natural and organic ingredients are important for the skin. And that just really just kept snowballing. And next thing you knew, we had a call from Vogue magazine wanting to interview us and talk about this unique product.
Wow.
So you just never know where these things lead to, and it may start out really small and insignificant, but just going through all of those touch points of in-person, free editorial, and also providing your product if you can for free at events that may be related to your product. So, for example, in a farmer's market, I could have a table and showcase some of our masks and moisturizers because they are made from real fruits and vegetables, for example. And that had a really good crossover to the market that is interested in natural foods, but also natural skincare solutions. So sometimes those opportunities are where you wouldn't expect them, and they don't always have to cost a lot of money. I mean, it took us over 20 years to put a full page ad in Vogue magazine because it is so expensive. So in the beginning, we started out very grassroots with local publications and events, and then kept growing globally. And wherever I could take the opportunity to attend an event, even if it was, further abroad. So I started traveling to Asia as an attendee to some trade shows, and it seemed really out of the question that I would ever exhibit there. I mean, it's thousands and thousands of dollars, but attending events and trade shows that are not in your own city can also give you a lot of insight into marketing. And I saw
Mm,
a lot of product ideas and made connections there. And I really believe that those sorts of events and opportunities will just help grow a brand because you're putting yourself out there and kind of getting out of your backyard and seeing what's out there. It doesn't have to cost a fortune, but it is about that exposure and also allowing yourself to see what's out there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I think it's so important for us to remember as business owners that, you know, in this digital world today, it's so easy just to sit back and do everything on social media and online and not actually put ourselves out there and go and take advantage of these opportunities. And they truly are opportunities because, a lot of people are probably missing doing those things. So that's really a great way to have those in-person interactions to give your brand an edge.
Yes, yes, I agree. I mean, one of the places that I also looked at was with SKU management. So it seems really strange for a creative director to be involved in SKU and inventory management, but that was a really great tie-in for me because I could leverage all that overstock items, all of those overstock products at these events. So in fact, I met with the inventory manager weekly, and we would go through looking at SKUs and items that were overstocked and see how I could leverage those for different events. So whether it was donating to shelters, we worked a lot with women's shelters here in Vancouver to supply self-care products, but also overstock items that could be used with gift with purchase, for example. And that's one area that really helped propel our brand forward, was looking at how could we leverage the stock that might be sitting there or a great product that somebody hasn't tried um, with a gift with purchase. And so we started running gift with purchase with every promotion. So every launch, and we launched very aggressively. Every quarter we had 3 or 4 new products. So I must say it was it was a lot. So when I started, we had 7 products in the portfolio. By the time I left, it was 180 different unique products. So you can imagine how many products we had to
Wow.
keep promoting and keeping in front of our customers' eyes. And there were times when, yes, we had some products that were overstocked. Using those for gift with purchase in the spa, not only for the retail customer, because that's kind of a given that the retail customer can have a gift with purchase, but I think one of the secrets was that we gifted our business customers as well, so our
Mm,
distributors. And that worked well because they used our professional products in their back bar for their treatment. And if we were able to give them products that they could use on the customers, on their spa clients, then those spa clients would in turn be exposed to that. So I I guess I would say don't ignore your business partner in terms of gift with purchase as well and
mm,
overstock. And that seemed to work really well and really helps to foster a great relationship there.
yeah.
But also with the inventory part, it was just kind of interesting for me because I was never really into the numbers and number crunching. And I know that it's not everybody's forte, but it's really important to look at that on a regular basis. Look at
Hmm.
your inventory, work with your inventory manager. If that's yourself, really love to do that on a regular basis to really get close to what products are selling and why and in which territories. For us, because we became a global brand, we really had to look at that from a geographical point of view and also seasonality. So our product was very seasonal, especially with things like sunscreen. So, we would build promotions
Yeah.
around sunscreens in the spring and gift with purchase. But then we also had customers that were in Hawaii or in warmer states. So we would have to look at which products would sell in those areas when we were creating marketing campaigns. So I
Yeah.
think the inventory and the marketing work together very closely, and there is a
Yes.
huge synergy there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Mhm.
So how often would you say, when doing that SKU performance audit or whatever you might call it, how often
Mhm.
would you suggest someone, maybe that has a smaller product-based business, how frequently should they be doing that?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like a lot, but I would do it at least every couple of weeks. So running a full inventory on your products is very difficult. And I know that. I mean, we had thousands, we had 180 plus SKUs, but we had different sizes of each one. So we literally had thousands of SKUs and labels and boxes. So it was an ongoing exercise. But for myself, I really worked with an analyst and got the reports that I needed for my marketing. And I would look at that on a weekly basis because we were building our plans out. Up to 3 years in advance. So all of my product promotions were planned 3 years in advance, or I meant to say 3 years, 3 years in advance. So I wasn't looking at 6 months or 12 months even. I was looking at 3 years and working back from that and seeing what I could slot in where. So that was really effective. And then looking at the inventory to see really what was selling at what times of years. So times of the year. So for me, the seasonality, as I said, was really important. So I'd build campaigns around spring, summer, fall. We'd do like a fall harvest campaign or summer sun or restart for spring. And I think a lot of products could actually fall into the seasonality. I think if I can tell you that was one of my big secrets with the brand was the seasonality. And if you can time it right, but getting that to your business customers months and months in advance. So I would launch those campaigns, at least 6 months in advance before they would have
Wow.
to buy it. So knowing your inventory on a weekly basis would help you create those campaigns. So I did look at those numbers and I learned to love them. And I realized it's not just about the sales, it's about that SKU performance and which ones
Mm,
are doing well. And kind of to tie into that, as a creative director, I also sat on the SKU rationalization team meetings. So it also seems strange that I would be involved in that, but it's because of the campaign. So,
yeah.
somebody might say, we should cut this product. It's really not selling. I'll say, well, actually, did you know that that was featured in InStyle magazine, a year ago, and we're still leveraging that marketing success. So
Mm,
even if a product it doesn't have that sales value, it can really have that marketing and PR value. So maybe
yeah.
we have, a photo from the Oscars where, a celebrity was holding that product. Let's not get rid of that product because it's still giving
Yeah.
us other value. Um, and so that's why I was included in that way and the value that I added, and also gave me a lot of insight into which products weren't selling and creating
Yeah.
campaigns around that to help increase their sales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so great. Yeah, everything is connected. And I love what you said about, planning some of those campaigns like 6 months in advance, which is, I mean, as someone
Mhm.
who works in marketing, usually things are a little bit more rushed than that, a little bit more last minute. So,
Mhm.
I think it's important for us all to try to be a little bit more forward thinking with our planning and look at that SKU
Mhm.
performance on a
Yes.
regular basis so that we can have better marketing campaigns around it.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
those creating those marketing campaigns and the plan is so essential. And I know we've all had training in how to create marketing plans and that sort of thing, but I really started off very simply with a whiteboard, core did my Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. We would write in ideas. I had a team. And when I started out, there were only two of us in marketing, so it was easy. We used the whiteboard, we would come up with ideas, Well, back then we did e-blasts, if you can imagine, or I should say fax blasts. We did a lot of mailings. We didn't have the e-blasts.
Yeah.
So we had to plan in advance. So if we were doing a mailing to 1,000 customers, you can imagine all the supplies we would need to buy, all the envelopes and boxes,
Mm.
and get the inventory in. So it really started off very grassroots, just with the
Yeah.
whiteboard, and then we moved into Excel. And I quickly realized that we needed to plan not only the quarters, but every week and then every day. So every day was accounted for in terms of what we were doing
Wow.
in all different aspects. And now, of course, we have a team of 50 in marketing. So that's a huge team that's looking after all different facets of the campaign. But creating all of those touch points and making sure you have a work back schedule for each one of those. So if I want to do mailing to spas in California, then I need to make sure 6 months to a year in advance that I can order those products, those jars, those materials, especially for a product that needs to be grown from the
Mm.
ground and mature and
Yeah.
then made into skincare. There was a very long lead time. So
Yeah.
lead times and doing those work back schedules are so important when you're working with a marketing campaign and working with a product that needs to dovetail with that. And mailing out products, it still works. It works for us. I don't
Yeah.
know if it works for everybody,
Well, that's
but getting
great.
that product into the hands of your business customer is essential.
Yeah.
I can't stress that enough. It really does depend what your product is, but if it's food, beverage, or tactile, even something like linens or whatever you are selling, if somebody can
Mm.
feel it and touch it, it makes a huge difference, and however you can
Yeah.
do that is really important. So planning
That's
that
so
out,
important.
yeah.
Yeah, with product-based businesses, like it is a physical product, it's tactile. You need to be able to see and touch it and feel it and
Hmm.
smell it and all that. And it's, really different from marketing like a service-based business versus a product-based business. That there is that tactile element that you really have to focus on. You can't omit it from your
Yeah.
promotions and your marketing. Yeah.
Yes, and I know we weren't going to talk about the service side of it, but of course, being in the spa industry, there's a huge service aspect. So
Mhm.
every product that we created needed to have education with it and an educational module. And
Mm.
so we started off just with a handful of reps that would go into spas and teach the techniques of the massage therapy and facials. We can't replicate that with an email. We can do
Yeah.
YouTube videos, of course, you can do all of that, kind of the e-marketing aspect. But when you're sitting down with someone in a room and they're asking you questions and they're touching the product and seeing how to apply it, and you also get so much valuable feedback that way. So through e-marketing, you can get metrics and you can get other types of feedback that is very important, like how many people open that email or, what's
Yeah.
the engagement and all of that. That's great, but you don't really know the quality of it sometimes, or
Yeah.
those missed questions and those really golden opportunities that would help propel your brand forward. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
that
so
in
true.
person, it's still, I think, very important and even more so.
Yeah.
Mhm.
YouTube
Yeah.
tutorial is not going to cut it where an in-person.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's great.
Yeah.
Um, Going back to events for a minute, Stephanie, you mentioned events, that in-person events are just such a great way to promote your product. Also a great way to do market research and check out your competition. So
Mm.
what would you say, why is keeping an eye on your competition important?
That's
And
a really great point and something that I did from day one. And
yeah,
especially going to those events is where the light bulb went on and I said to myself, wow, like I'm not the only skincare brand in town, obviously, but knowing what others are doing is super important to your own brand. So excuse me, very quickly on, we developed our top 10 competition list or comp set, as we call it. And that was something that took a lot of research and to be honest with yourself about who your competition really is and why. Creating that list and going back to it every month, actually. So now, of course, we have a team that can go and check online. So they check the website, may check them out in store or in spa. There are many different touch points in which you can keep your eye on your competition. But really also looking at who your competition is to see if it's changed because often
Mm,
you think you know who your competition is. Obviously, it might be an organic skincare brand. But then all of a sudden I would realize, wow, this brand that never had any organic products before in the past just launched an organic cleanser or, a few items.
yeah.
And they were doing some damage. And I didn't even really realize that. So really being open to that. When we started the brand, there weren't that many organic skincare companies in spa, let alone in stores. And now you can go into Sephora and just look around and
Yeah.
in awe. And actually, I I'm very happy about it because in the end, it's really helping people with their skin, the planet as well, and the environment by keeping those nasty toxic chemicals out of our bodies and also in the production of the product. So it's great that the whole industry is elevated
Hmm.
that way, but keeping an eye on the competition and then also seeing where those niche opportunities are and putting that together. So for me, it was another light bulb moment was when I thought, okay, so organic is great, but people want results from their skincare and looking at some of the competition that maybe was more into the technology part of it, so the results oriented aspects and using really cool ingredients like hyaluronic acid or retinols. Well, obviously I couldn't use the chemical versions of that, but I thought, how can we make that in an organic or natural way? And that gave us a huge edge because I was able to put the organic world together with the results oriented world and create products that kind of delivered on both. And then again, kind of rose us above the organic competition in some ways. So looking at your competition is super important to keep your product relevant and growing and evolving, and also just to see what is going out there and what are your opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I often feel like, looking at competition can sometimes feel really icky. Yeah, I don't know why. It's just as maybe we feel like that. It's like it feels kind of taboo. You shouldn't be doing it.
Mhm.
Focus on yourself. But I think
Yeah.
it's so important it helps to inspire you in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it keeps you developing and innovating, like you said, and just
Mhm.
being one step ahead. So that's really great that you
Yeah.
mentioned it. Um,
Yeah, and I think you can also be quite sure that it's probably happening to you as well. So,
that's true. Yeah. Yeah, it's
so
not just a
yeah.
one-way street, right? There's eyes looking at you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see there's a question just in the Q&A here about looking at competition, and it says, how do you get past that competition's damage on a personal level? They are doing better with the same thing that you are doing, but started off on your coattails.
Ooh. Well, yes, that's happened before.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. There are brands that, well, actually, that's where traveling and going to these trade shows was really
Mm.
important because I used to travel by myself to Asia and do these huge trade shows in Hong Kong. And I remember coming up the elevator, the four-story convention center. It was just gigantic. And at the top of it was an organic skincare company with exactly the same packaging, exactly the same color of products. We have very unique products and but a different label. My heart just sank. I couldn't believe it. It was I really didn't know what to do. And so I went and looked, and sure enough, it was basically a copycat of
Wow.
your products. Yeah. So I had to think quickly and, you know, talk with lawyers and stuff like that, obviously. But those kind of moments are very sobering because you realize, oh, okay, so maybe in BC or around your area, it's not happening, but it could be happening somewhere else and you don't
Yeah.
even know about it. So going to these events is super important to see that. Yeah, I mean, what advice can I give? It's sometimes a bit of a compliment. I try to look at it as a compliment,
Yeah.
um, and realize that it is more of a long-term situation. So try not to get too upset about it, because it does. Some of these companies come and go, and they really try just
Mhm.
to ride on the coattails, and
Yeah.
sometimes that doesn't last.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does, and it creates healthy competition, like I mentioned about all of the organic skincare companies that are out there now. In a way, I think it's great because it's helping the environment and helping
Yeah.
people with their skin. So it is hard. There will be competition and they will come and go. So I would say that they might not last the test of time. They don't have the
Yeah.
magic that you have. They're
Yes.
just trying to emulate what you have, and they're always going to be a few steps behind because you are going to go forward and do these events and learn new things and innovate your product and your brand to a place that they can't even keep up to you. So
Yeah.
that was my kind of approach that sure, yes, you can wear the same outfit as me, but I'm going to be looking at something else in the future. Like it is a form of flattery, but it also keeps you on your toes and keeps
Yes.
you innovating and propelling yourself forward. I've also learned that there are hardly any new ideas out there in a way. Like
Mm.
it's kind of sad to say, but a lot of it's been done before. Even if you look back 50 years, there are things that are popular now that were popular then, but you can do them in a different way. And I think
Yeah.
it's putting your personal and unique spin on it from your own brand's perspective that will give you that success and keep you really individualized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so great. Thank you for that, Stephanie. Appreciate it. Um, Going over to talking about product launches, you said earlier you started with about 7 products, I think it was, and you grew from
Mhm.
there.
Yes.
So when launching a new product, because you've done it many times, what's your process for planning a product launch and what are some
Mm,
important elements to consider?
yes. Well, product launches were my life. In fact, that was my title for many years, brand and product launch manager. And so I started with those whiteboards, really. Like
Yeah.
it really was just brainstorming every single touch point to the launch. Nothing was too trivial. It may have been ordering, those ties for that bag. What are all of the different touch points for the launch? And we put it into a spreadsheet. We had it in a spreadsheet, and every single item was accounted for. And then we did the work back schedule for each one of those. So in the end, you find out, wow, it's going to take me 18 months really to launch this because my longest lead item is coming from Asia and it's going to take, 2 months
Yeah.
to get here. So looking at that longest lead time then gives you the starting point and creating that whole plan around the product. So the product is just one aspect. Of course, we would look at the PR and marketing. Which magazines did we want to work with? What is our e-marketing campaign? And putting all those aspects into it, and then launching to our own customers, our business customers, our B2B marketing was really huge. We also had quite a sizable sales rep component, so we had to launch with them as
Mm.
well. And that's one part that's often overlooked is launching with your own teams, all of everybody in the team, like not just the people in marketing. I would launch to the supply chain team, for example, accounting, everybody was involved in knowing what we're launching and knowing everything about the product that we were launching. And I think
Mm.
that that was also really important because often we think, well, why would somebody and an analyst want to know about the product? Well, when they're crunching those numbers, now they know what product they're dealing with and what it really means. To the brand. So we really included our own teams and we would do launch parties, which was really fun. So I know everybody likes a good launch party.
Yeah.
We would tie the ingredients to the product, for example. So we would do something very unique, for example, like Tokai grape mask. And people would be like, well, what's a Tokai grape? Well, they're a very important grape for Hungary, very traditional grape that they would make dessert wines from. So would
Mhm.
source those grapes, and we would show them along with the product so people knew what actually was in the jar. And I think that that's also interesting, is to show those components that go into making the product. I would do not only just digital mood boards, but the tactile ones. When you would have a big tray with everything that's related to it that would inspire the launch. So really get everyone to understand what that launch is about in those
Mm.
launch parties, and really get close to it. So we would have to plan the launch parties, of course, and that would be part of our launch planning, and then all the outreach with the e-blasts and mailings and all of those things. It became gigantic. I think I started with probably 30 to 50 lines in my spreadsheet, and we ended up with probably over 1,000 when I
Over 1,000 lines in your spreadsheet.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And so at first they were put into sections, and then we still used Excel actually, and we still do. It is one of the greater tools, I find, when you
Mm.
find somebody that knows how to really use it. I didn't really use all of the pivot tables and all of that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
but just really just mind dump everything into that. And then we used programs like Asana and those for smaller tasks to break it down. I don't know what's the latest right now, but some of those automated softwares were really good
Yeah.
to help us with the smaller tasks and assigning tasks to people.
Yeah.
So when creating a product launch, it's important to account for every little thing and then plan for it, plan for your success by doing that. And it also helps you sleep at night, knowing that you've
Yeah.
accounted for everything. Because I don't know how many times I would wake up in the middle of the night going, oh, no, that I forgot.
Yeah.
But when
Uh,
you take that time up front, and then you have a
yes.
template to work with launch to launch. So in
Mm.
the beginning, yes, it's very daunting to create
Yeah.
that plan. But then, and it's always evolving. It's a living, breathing organism almost.
Yeah.
And so I looked at it every day. It was my roadmap. So having that roadmap is very comforting as well.
Yeah.
So the work back schedules, creating that roadmap for yourself, and being realistic, also putting in buffer. So we've had a few times when things didn't work out. I'm sure we can all relate in terms of product delivery, something gets held up. We have things like volcanoes erupting. I remember when we had that, and no
Mhm.
airplanes were flying from Europe
Yeah.
to Canada.
That's right.
A lot of our products were caught and not able to make it. And of course, North America is still expecting the launch. So, what do you do there?
Yeah.
So building in that buffer for unexpected and unforeseen circumstances is really important in your
Yeah.
product launch. And then the other part I would say is building in that debrief with your
Mhm.
teams after the launch. And, I was always so eager to keep working on the next one because I was
Yeah.
working actually on about 4 to 6 launches at one time. So it wasn't just one launch, then the next one. We were working on them in tandem. So it's easy enough to move on from that launch and say, okay, that was done and successful. But it's really important to debrief all the
Yeah.
successes and also all the areas of improvement from all teams. It wasn't just the marketing team or even our customers. You just don't know where that feedback lies. So we
Yeah.
would definitely check in with everybody on what we could do differently, and we would have debriefs about that, even about forecasting. For example, funny enough, it was my job to forecast our products. We had a huge team of analysts. If I was bringing a product to market, how much did I think it would sell and in which markets? I actually led those discussions, and then they would crunch the numbers and say, okay, that sounds right. We called it the wheel of forecasting. You don't really know how much you're going to sell actually, but you can have some pretty good guesses just based on your experience. So going
Yeah.
back on your forecasting and seeing, did I order too many jars? Did I order too much of this or that? Will help you in planning in the future for your product launch as well. So you don't have that excess inventory sitting around as well. So
Yeah.
those are just some of the key points. I'm sure I missed a number, but there's just so much that goes into a product launch. And it really is still a passion area for me. Like I love seeing
Yeah.
products come to
I can
life.
tell it's
Yeah.
such great insights, and
Mm,
I think we're all probably eager to get our product to market and put it out there, and
yeah.
but it's important to kind of take that step back and take that time and think ahead and plan. Um,
Mhm. Yeah.
so, Stephanie, once you've launched the product, what are some things that you want to consider then when merchandising it in store, once it's
Mm.
already in store?
Yes. Yeah, that was also a great passion area for me. I love doing that in spa visits. So, we make the product in the office. It goes to our sales reps and distributors, and the spas were really our distributors and business B2B customers. But we had our whole consumer segment, which as a B2B business, we didn't have as much connection with, if I can say. Like, I wasn't creating the interior of the spa to match the product. It was the spa that created their storefront, and then my products would be in there. So going to the spas was really important to see what was happening in the retail area and what were the touch points. And I would actually kind of watch people shop the product. I would shop the product myself. And sometimes I'd be horrified. I'd be like, I can't find that cleanser. I can't find
Mm,
that mask. And until you shop your own product, you have no idea, really what people are going through. And
yeah,
some people have their own storefronts, but for us, we didn't. So it was very important for us to go in and see how that was performing. And I would look around and I would say, okay, we need those tags to say what section they're shopping in, for example, cleansers or masks or toners. So seeing, what are the tools that are needed to be developed to really help the product be successful in the merchandising setting in that spa retail space, and then see what are some other opportunities. So for me, when I went into the spa retail space, I saw, oh, there's a lot of opportunity in the treatment room as well to cross market our product and develop some little shelf talkers that could be put into the treatment room. So when somebody's finished their treatment, they would say, oh, yeah, that's the cleanser that they just used on me. I'm going to go and buy it at the front. And we always had, a rule that for every customer that walked out the door, they should try to buy two products. So that was really the formula, and really did help the spas as well with their revenue. So, in a way, I was helping the spas with their revenue, but helping us with ours at the same time. And that
yeah,
consistent branding, I think, was a huge thing for us, having evolved over 20 plus years. We started off with a very ornate logo that was very kind of old school European. And over the years, we really pared back on it, taking away a lot of this kind of fruits and flowers that were on it. But what also happened is our branding went all over the place. And so going into the spa was very sometimes heartbreaking. I would see a poster on the wall that was there for, probably 10 years. It had really old branding on it. So that in-spa merchandising, the visits and
yeah,
or the merchandising visits, I think are really important to make sure that your brand is being represented properly and correctly and also matches your online presence. So that's another place that I found that our e-marketing and website teams were just amazing. They were kind of able to leap ahead with those changes a lot faster than we could in the product world, because to change a product label or box, it takes almost a year or more for us to cycle through all the inventory, may still be on the shelf for a year and a half. It looks different on the website. There's all of that. It can be quite confusing for the end consumer. They need to see a
mhm,
consistent brand in spa, in store, and online. So that's part of the merchandising work that I really love to do, is those visits to see all
yeah,
of that. Yeah.
that's so important.
Yeah.
Um, I see we've got about 15 minutes left here, and I see there's lots of questions over in the Q&A chat here. So I want to make sure that we have time to get to some of them if
Okay.
you're willing, Stephanie. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just looking through it here. Um, One question says, how do you collect authentic customer feedback?
Yes, that is interesting. So for end consumers, we didn't really have a lot of opportunity for that. We didn't do direct, email campaigns. So back in the day, it was really more of a word of mouth. Um, kind of situation. We would go to spas, talk to customers. We would get feedback from the actual spas themselves on our products and services. And it was more word of mouth. But now, of course, social media has really changed that. And
Mm.
pros and cons, do you get how much authenticity do you get there? It really depends on how you engage with your customer base. You can get gems from different places for sure. We did do a customer satisfaction survey that we used to send out every year, and that was a huge amount of work. I would say that that was probably least effective.
Mhm.
We did get information there, but there are numbers and stats, and you can see some comments. You know, there were some gems in there, but sometimes people would use those as a reason to vent about stuff that maybe didn't have anything to do with the question. So, having those sales reps out there getting that real-time feedback from customers, I think is the most important, and not to shy away from that. So when we go into a spa, for example, and ask them, how do you like this new launch? Or, you know, what's working for you? That's where you really get those gems and that authentic feedback, in my opinion, is that personal interaction. And I know that it's impossible to see all of your customers all of the time, but even if you
Yeah,
make time to visit a few in some key areas, that will really give you some authentic feedback.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's so great. Um, Another question here. Amy asked, how did your business change with the internet and how did you scale up? And that's actually really interesting because you were with Eminence for 23 years, I think it was, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
you kind of saw like the beginnings of the internet, like when it was kind of in its infancy, moving to recent times, right? So you really have that perspective.
How did we scale up? Yes, well, I mean, our website was super basic when we first started it. I just found a guy in the building that I was that we had our office in. He was on another floor and he kind of knew how to put websites together. So I said, okay, can you make a website for us? And so he did, and it was fine for a while. But of course, then we grew and we had to scale up our online presence and I was shocked at how much that cost.
Yeah.
Like, I was I was really shocked. And for us, you know, we have so we have the business, the B2B portal, and then we have our consumer facing. So what you see on the website is just part of the picture. There's all of the stuff in the background, which is really for our sales reps to access. So we really had to scale that up. We had to bite the bullet and make that investment
Mhm.
to store all of that information. And as well, then through COVID, because spas were closed and you know, business took a really big hit, as did a lot of small businesses and businesses of all sizes. We had to start a bit of online business to consumer shopping, and we never sold directly to consumers until just recently. And I know that's quite scary, like or
Yeah.
strange to hear that we didn't do that, but we really believed that our spas were our main customers. So really deciding who your main customer is and then scaling up your efforts to really support them. Because if we didn't have the spas, we wouldn't have a business. And
Yeah.
so it's all kind of related in that question that you need to scale up in a way that makes sense for your target customer. I don't know if that answered the question. Was it about the
Yeah.
website or something
Yeah,
else?
just how do you sort of scale up in the with the internet and the digital age? I
With
think
the internet,
that's
yeah.
that's
I mean,
great.
the other part I'll add to that is I grew up in the business grew up in the print advertising world. So I only did print advertising, and we still have a huge amount of print advertising that we use.
Mhm.
And what we did augment that with, of course, is the digital magazines, and those were really useful. And digital e-blasts through the magazines, for example. So they offered that as a value add. But I will say that still, and I've told you this before, Holly, when I went into the dentist office the other day and there was a magazine sitting there from 3 years
Yeah.
ago, and I opened it up and there was an ad that I made, and I thought, okay, so this has stood the test of time,
Oh,
and you just don't know with print advertising, you know, where you're going to find it. It has a huge shelf life. So yes, pay attention to growing that digital presence and that, but don't forget about the print side
Mhm.
and that tactile side that
Yeah.
does stand the test of time. When you look at photos that you look at all the time, they're usually in a photo album, for me at least. Those are the ones I remember, rather than the thousands and thousands I have on my camera roll. So really be
Yeah.
selective about some of those opportunities. It's a balance. It is a
Yeah.
balance. Mhm.
Yeah, that's such great advice. I like that analogy of the photo album versus the thousands in your camera roll. That's exactly, I feel the exact same way.
Yeah.
Another question here, there's a couple of them kind of similar, so I'll kind of
Mhm.
piggyback off of that. Talking about being in the spas, having your product in the spas and having that kind of B2B model rather than
Mhm.
selling directly to consumers. Um, Annabelle was asking what drove that choice to have that B2B model.
Mhm.
And then sort of a different question here as well is, did you use a distributor to go to the spas or did you go directly to them? So what
Yes.
drove
Yeah.
that choice and then how did you?
Yeah, I can answer the second one really quickly. We did everything ourselves. So we did not use distributors. We were lucky enough to have somebody that loved to travel, basically there for 20 years. And that's what it took, is somebody that would knock on every single door, every single spa door, not once, not
Uh,
twice, but just repeatedly and on repeat. And I remember that this person would be walking to the spa with like a basket on his arm filled with products and just really went in there and showed it personally as somebody involved with the brand. And that went a long way. So we did not use distributors. Later, when we went into 50 countries, of course, we couldn't split this person up that in over 50 countries. So we did use distributors because we found that people or that marketing in different regions was very different. And so we have distributors in various regions that are very tied to their market. So, for example, in Asia or in South America, for example. So we do
yeah,
use distributors for those further away markets, but our own market, Canada and, well, North America, really, we did it ourselves directly. So I think that was really key because that's where we also got a lot of that feedback and information to help grow the brand along the way. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
that's
know
so
I forgot the
great.
first question, sorry.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. And I don't know if we're going to get to all the questions today.
Yeah.
So I think afterwards, what we'll do is maybe, Stephanie, if you're comfortable, we can share your LinkedIn profile, maybe.
Hmm.
I don't know what's the best way that you maybe want to connect with people. They
Yeah.
can ask
Yeah,
you.
LinkedIn is good. I think I need to update my picture, but
Okay,
LinkedIn is
perfect. We'll share the
fine.
LinkedIn
Yeah.
profile, and then if they have any further questions that we weren't able to get to today.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I see with the amount of people that are on the call, and we talked about this before, I am comfortable sharing my personal email. So that's fine too, if there are any
Okay.
burning questions out there. I will be away for a few weeks in July, but I am pretty good at responding. But those few
Yeah.
weeks I will be out of cell phone range
Okay. Perfect.
up
So
in the
maybe I'll
beautiful
just,
north.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
so excited for your trip. That's going to be so great. Um, I'll do kind of one last question here, and then we can wrap up here because it's about 5 minutes to 11. I see one here. It says, one thing that I feel is a big buzzword these days is speaking about thought leadership to leverage your marketing. Do you feel that Eminence provided that, especially since you were at the vanguard of eco organic
Mhm.
skincare? And if so, what were some ways that you did this, especially in the B2B format?
Yes. Yeah, I think for me, and I know we've talked about this, the environment and protecting the planet is really important to me and has been had been from day one and still continues. So that was something that we built into the brand ethos from the very beginning. And everything from the packaging that we chose, we used only craft boxes and we actually stuffed them with straw. And, it was very, very organic. So it actually also aligned with the product and the brand. But we really focused on the environment and being leaders in that in our industry, which tell you the truth, the cosmetics and skincare industry can be, there's a lot of packaging. There's a lot
Mm,
of things that I still think about. And how can we dial that needle um, for the planet even better? So we would do things like plant a product for every, or plant a tree for every product, sorry.
yeah. Yeah.
So those were some initiatives that we brought to our industry, and I know it's done in other industries and with other products, but what is kind of that core value that you hold, and be that thought leader and see how you can really propel things forward, because it really, we only have one planet, so we do need to
Yeah.
take care of it. I think it's something I always struggled with being in product development, is we were creating more stuff, more things. And so making those conscious decisions, and going to those trade shows that I went to find out what are the new innovations in packaging, for example. So I remember when all the bamboo plastics came out and plant-based plastics, and I would gather all the jars and take them to my backyard, and I would bury them in the ground to see if they really did decompose. Stuff like
Good
that.
way to
Like,
think outside the box.
yeah, yeah, just really take matters into your own hands.
Yeah.
And when I was my last days at Eminence, I really looked at how can we reimagine the entire product line. And I
Mm,
looked at all the different types of packaging, plastic versus glass, for example, pros and cons for both.
yeah.
I'm sure if everyone's looked into those sorts of things. So being an expert in that area that's really important to you really can help the brand and drive those decisions. So we had metrics around that for the team. How can we reduce things like returns? I know we talked about this last time. We really had a strong metric around reducing returns of products. And so what can everyone in the company do to help that? I think it's a really important metric, because that also helps to save the planet. People aren't throwing things into the trash or recycling, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so amazing. Like, I just want to say thank you so much, Stephanie, for being here today. This hour just completely flew by. I don't
Are
know
we done
how it does.
already? No, I'm just getting started.
Completely flew by. And you shared so many great insights with us over an expansive 23-year career with Eminence. Just thank you so much for being here. Like I said before, we can share your LinkedIn profile and your email. I think maybe we'll send it in the follow-up email.
Okay.
People, if they have any other burning questions, they can reach out to you directly, and I'm sure that they would really appreciate that. And thank you everyone for asking such amazing questions. Sorry we weren't able to get to them all today. There were some really great ones in there. So quickly, I'm just going to wrap up here again. Um, I'll just quickly share just what we have some upcoming events with WeBC happening. July 22nd, we have our cash flow Canvas series. This is a really popular and very highly rated training series, so definitely look into it if you want to brush up on how to manage your financials. We also have our ongoing Smart on-demand programs in the areas of financial fitness, human resources, and marketing. So this is training that you could do on your own time and at your own pace. So definitely take advantage of these while you can. And be sure to follow us on our socials and head over to our website to sign up for our e-news to stay updated with everything that we'll be doing. And again, as a reminder, we'll be sending out the link to this recording in case you want to rewatch some of it and really absorb those great insights that Stephanie shared with us today. We'll be sending it in a follow-up email along with Stephanie's contact information if you want to reach out to her. So again, Stephanie, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. And thank you all for being here and taking the time out of your day today. And I hope everyone has an absolutely great weekend.
Thank you so much, Holly, and everyone behind the scenes too that made this session possible. And to the whole WeBC community, have a great day and good luck with your business. And I'm here. I'm really excited to talk to anybody that would like any further insights. Very open to it.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Thank
Bye.
you.
I saw the feedback pull up there. If anyone wants to take a minute and fill it out, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Perfect. Thank you, Jen.